Welcome to the Black Hat India podcast series. Today we have with us Swati from Frost and Sullivan, who will be moderating an interesting discussion with two of our very experienced review board members from Black Hat India. Please give it up for our moderator, Swati Aruna.
Thank you, Ayush. Hi, I am Swati, Principal Consultant, ICT Domain at Frost and Sullivan, India. Welcome to today's discussion on one of the most pressing topics in India's digital economy, that is AI-enabled cyber attacks. India's digital transformation has been remarkable, but the same technologies driving innovation is also being exploited by cybercriminals. In 2025 alone, cyber frauds, including digital arrest, investment scams, and AI enabled fraud, has reportedly caused 22,000 crore of loss. To help us understand how this landscape is evolving and what defenders can do about it, we are joined by two experts, Neelu Tripathy, Senior Security Architect, Adobe Inc., and Anant Shrivastava, Founder, Cyfinoid Research. A very warm welcome to both of you.
Thanks, Swati.
Thank you. So, Neelu, AI is being used both by attackers and defenders. Over the next 3 years, do you expect AI to benefit defenders in any way, and what are those?
Yeah, I think although AI, I would say, is in its infancy, there are a lot of big strengths that are coming out of AI, of course. I think one big area that we can use is pattern recognition. So, AI is very good at pattern recognition, and we have a lot of dots to join in security. So, I think particularly use it in two three big ways in organizations. We can of course automate a lot of things that we have been thinking of all this while, and we have these large engineering security engineering teams. It can actually boost the not just writing the code but also the entire automation of these attack paths that we are doing for detection. The pattern recognition can also help in a big way in actually detecting when issues happen, like from a threat intel standpoint where we have issues happening, we are collecting a lot of logs. There is a lot of opportunity to be able to correlate it well and get to meaningful attacks in real time.
Uh, Thank you for that. Anant, where do you expect defenders to benefit from AI?
So, like Neelu mentioned, pattern recognition. There are two parts to this particular space. One is that AI helps in acceleration. Whatever is possible right now with a human who has higher than average intelligence, that level of work can now be done by people who are of an average intelligence also. Why? Because the patterns that are there, which we call as intelligence, can be gathered, captured by these LLM models, and then everyone can get the benefit out of it. So that acceleration bit is there. The other part to it is, and I call this rented cognition, because most of us are actually renting the intelligence from some service provider.
Mm.
So if we keep that in mind and we keep the rented portion minimalized to reach a point where whatever patterns we're talking about, whatever intelligence we are leveraging LLM models for, we move that intelligence from these non-deterministic models to deterministic systems. That's where the true power for defenders would come in. So effectively, leverage these technologies that you have at your disposal to augment the capabilities that you already had, which is our biggest problem right now, that we don't have enough manpower, we don't have enough capabilities to process what is coming our way. So processing, say, pattern matching, trying to find the threads. So let's say investigation area. Those are the areas where I see LLMs helping a lot.
You said, rented cognition is one of the things, and AI is accelerating cyber attacks at an unprecedented pace. So, from a researcher's perspective, what has changed the most in this ecosystem over the last 2 years? And do you think AI is bringing in entirely new types of cyber attacks, or is it just propagating these attacks in a faster, cheaper, and in a more scalable way?
So I'll go a bit back, not just talking about cyber attacks per se, but about IT in general. What has happened with AI systems, and very specifically LLMs, large language models, is that they have changed the way we used to look at development. the whole focus of development was that there is an intelligent person who's actually working towards building a software. To now, we have reached a point where I think all of us are in that space where we launch a software which speaks to us in a human language, and we give them instructions on what to be done, how it is to be done. Some of us are paying attention to how the program is being written, some of us don't even care. A lot of programs that are now being created are not checked whether they're doing what was asked, but they're only checked against a set of input. If the output looks good or good enough, we're okay with that. So the movement has happened from being a developer to being a manager of developers. Now, on the development side, there is resistance around this. There is a lot of debate that is going on and a lot of arguments that are happening around intelligence and whatnot. The attacker front is like, we got a new toy and it helps us. So they are now at that pace where if an open source code is available, which what they're now doing. So you see, Shai Hulud came out, Miasma very recently did the same thing. They create a malware, they make it available to public after a few days. So this is what I made. Now you can use it and leverage it forward. The other person who wants to attack now can download this, say, hey, I want to change this to this. And those changes are very easily done. And then they have something new available. The old version of Shai Hulud was uploading all the content in plain text. The new versions that have come out, they're doing the same thing in an encrypted format. So earlier, the tracking was easier for the defenders. I could see who is getting attacked. Now I can't. So that's where the evolution is happening in terms of the LLM space on the attacker side. Uh, did your question also include defender side?
No, just on the attacker side. Right. So thank you for that, Anant. And so Neelu, you mentioned a couple of things, right? Pattern recognition, correlation, automation, and then moving the organizations are still at a reactive stage and it's not really proactive. There's not, you also mentioned that the velocity of cyber attacks is increasing. So and of course the organization silos which has existed, organizations have easily multiple cybersecurity vendors and tools. So in such a complex landscape, right, what are the security practices that you think organizations should prioritize today to remain resilient in the next couple of years?
I think, yeah, it's a good question you asked. Particularly the next couple of years are going to be I would say very experimental, because everybody is just trying to find their feet with all the models coming in, optimizing the costs, where do they use it, how do they use it, and all of that. And security often follows the business. So whatever is your business, particularly engineering in the tech side, and how things move there. One of the first things that we see right away is, I will take from what Anant was saying, is a lot of code being generated. And that code is not necessarily as clean as we think, because it's all essentially training from what we had. Over a period of time, it will get better. But right now, we have to deal with all this generated code that's being generated much faster. I think within organizations, even if it's reactive, the good time to start with using AI for, because you will also need to be faster that way and at the pace, is look at your layers. First, can you be where the developer is? For example, be in the IDE. So if they start using Cursor to generate code, can you actually add your guardrails there? If they're using Claude, can you add your skills there? So it's more important to be where the developer is, first of all, to be able to prevent these issues from happening. Can you be on the pipelines where, for example, there is continuous integration happening and you have your own set of controls and checks and scans that you can put in? And not just, when I'm saying all of this, is not just in a deterministic way. However creative you can get, you can use your AI tools and see where you are. So be wherever, particularly in the infrastructure and application layer, where developers are, first of all, because now they're starting to use AI to write that code. Second is for your network environment and overall for the enterprise boundaries, and no boundaries anymore actually. But if you look at it that way, whichever attacks are coming outside in, think of how many controls you can actually put in terms of, there are many of these vendors that you were talking about who are coming with their own AI enabled modules as well, where they themselves can do pattern recognition on the things that they find. So a lot of them are to enable detection, but with detection, they can do a lot more correlation on the back end. So we need to be empowered with that as a second layer as well. Third, see that in the enterprise, can we have these fundamental controls which are built in, or can we have larger platforms where you can push the controls into? And I'm seeing a lot of benefit of that, because you can still use, for example, your agentic code that is being developed by the new age developers, but as long as it is built on a specific platform where you have a combination of both deterministic controls that we were always using and the probabilistic controls which you can have using AI, all of that is baked into the platform itself. So whoever builds on it without sacrificing their freedom, because developers want a lot of freedom, um, they are able to get the benefit of baseline security across that. So starting from their baseline security, their configuration security, a lot of things around agentic and AI development, because everybody wants to do AI development today. All those controls can be baked into these platforms, where then you can provide best of both the worlds, right? And you can also have the visibility. So that's a big thing to do. So having your fundamental controls right, and then I think the last leg is to innovate in this space. See, what is it that we can correlate? Is it, once you start getting in the intel from these platforms, these different pipelines that are across your enterprise, can you correlate better and see that there is an adversarial threat or something that's outside, something like a shy hulud or something else? Are you able to actually find that out? Because until you have these fundamental controls, even when shy hulud or any other supply chain threats come in, we again go back to inventory. And inventory has been there for a decade, and no AI can solve it if it doesn't have the visibility. And that is something we have to understand. If you cannot see your attack surface, you cannot secure it. So having these fundamental controls will also help your own AI, which of course I'll not get into the debate of, AI is being blocked and models being blocked here and there. But having the right balance of that will actually help you get the right insights and then catch things in real time, if not proactively. As I think you would remember, there was a movie called Minority Report that came in, where you proactively look at, you can see the threats beforehand. That's a bit far, but then you can at least find it almost in real time.
Yeah, thank you, Neelu. That gives a very good picture and about what the current landscape is. So, Anant, Neelu spoke about controls and what organizations can do. But what I want to get from you is, where do you see is the biggest capability gap in security teams when it comes to investigating and responding to AI? And you said that LLMs are generating code very faster. So, how do you see the landscape going, and where should people be trained more when it comes to cybersecurity?
So there was one word that she mentioned, inventory. The way I look at it is IT and IT security never had a proper inventory. So even if they will have it, they will not know what to do with it. So we can see that example like SBOM. The idea was to create an inventory of software. The most pushback that comes around SBOM comes from developers, who are also going to be the most benefited entities. But because the narrative that is right now there, where SBOM is used only to find bugs or only to find vulnerable libraries, everyone is against it. So there's a negative sentiment around SBOM. And that's where the point comes that even if we have inventory, we don't know what to do with it. So obviously, inventory is going to be the first step. You need to know what you have so that you can do something about it. I am a proponent of reducing your attack surface. And that goes in multiple ways. I call it attack surface because I'm looking at it from security. But imagine a scenario where your organization has 100 projects. Each of those projects is, let's say, to paint a glorified picture, everything is written in Node.js. And every one of those projects has about 10,000 dependencies. How many of them are we actually using? When we dig deep into the dependency ecosystem, we see that there may be 20,000 lines of code, and the lines that you are using in your program is probably 2 lines or 5 lines of code. But you've included that dependency because that gave you a easy to call function. So we're not even looking at that space right now. Another way to look at it, and a couple of folks who are way ahead in this field have done this kind of work and they've failed miserably. So one of the persons, Halvor Flake, He started a company around reducing the computing cost. The whole idea was that why are we wasting a lot of our compute? And what he ended up realizing was the organizations are not interested. He was able to reduce the cloud bill of organizations by say 50 to 90%, but the organizations were not willing to go into that track. So the capability gap that we are talking about, or the gaps that are there, is one, we have to start, and especially now, we have to start thinking about computing as a finite set of resources. What cloud has done is given us a view that it's infinite. I can click a button and add more RAM and add more CPU and whatnot. And right now, everything is on the verge of collapse. If you look at the prices of the retail, say RAM storage and others, they've gone up like 5 times, 10 times. If you look at how organizations like Google are now responding to it, you will see the accounts are now getting limited storage space. At one point, a workspace account basically meant you had unlimited space. Now you have limited space. Why are they doing it? Because the resources are reaching their limits. They have to put a cap on those things, while the development world is not looking at that at all. So that's one part. To do that, you will end up doing reduction in your program, in your third party dependencies that you're bringing in, and that would eventually lead to reduced attack surface. Does that gives you the answer?
Yeah, it does. Thank you so much. So, moving on to Black Hat India, right? So, Anant, when you look at the Indian cybersecurity ecosystem, what shifts have made Black Hat coming to India inevitable?
Uh, it's more of like India is a big enough market that it's not possible to keep it ignored. So Black Hat coming in is actually a good thing. The brand gets the direct connect in India, because no matter what we say, if someone wants to associate with this brand, the only options were to go to 3 conferences that were happening in different continents, or one was happening in the same continent but still a bit far. Not everyone can take that time out, go out and have that whole thing. So having a conference in the country helps in that aspect. That's one of the biggest areas for me.
Great. What are your thoughts, Neelu?
Yeah, I think it's a win-win both ways. I think for the research community also, the closer a conference is, the more approachable it is in many ways. You will find that not just the part, of course, a plus one to what Anand said, not just from a conference perspective, but also from a research community perspective. The community will get a lot of boost in terms of, yes, our research is something that we can submit here. We should start looking at more innovation. What are we really disrupting in security in terms of defense or attack, and then submit a lot more of that. This definitely gives more optimism in terms of being selected also, but also getting a level playing field in the region where we are able to. I'm sure that we were submitting a lot of that anyways in other conferences, but it makes us way more closer to home, way more approachable. And this is, I'm not saying just from a submission standpoint, but also from an attending standpoint, because security leaders around the region, there's a lot of infrastructure coming up in India. All of them will be encouraged to do that. And it has a virtuous life cycle, right? So it will lead to all good things in terms of, okay, let's do more innovation. Let's see what we can change in our landscape. Let's go present. I think that's a win-win for both.
Thank you for that. And since you spoke about research and submission of research, how would you encourage researchers to submit their best work, Neelu?
Okay, so thanks for asking the question. I've been talking about this a lot, but particularly I see that there is a gap in India which I would want more filled more faster, in the sense that in the academic spheres, we don't have very focused institutions that are just going for cybersecurity, although it's become a big. I think it's here to stay with AI and other things coming in. This is not a focus like even like a subject in many places, because we only have everything to do with engineering. So I think that needs to change. And the second thing is, when we are looking for submissions as researchers, that's why we see a gap in terms of how do we approach a subject. Even if we have solved for a big problem, we have found new vulnerabilities or we have found new protocol issues and other things. the last mile, how do we submit, becomes a challenge many times. So it's not just that we need to start looking at good research. How do we take up good research, but also how do we document it? How do we present it? All of that becomes a part of the entire life cycle.
Right. Right. What are your thoughts on it?
So you brought a good point. In the other Black Hats, we've basically done a series. And the whole idea was to encourage people around, okay, how do we deal with this whole setup? So there are 3 parts in which we have taken it. The first part was you've done your research. How do you make a submission? Because that's one of the biggest problem I as a reviewer has faced. I look at a submission and I'm like, this seems like interesting, but not interesting enough. And then I go read a 50-page white paper that they have attached, and I'm blown away with the content in there. And then I'm like, okay, if you could have done something better at the actual submission, this had better chances of being selected. Now I have to force everyone to go read the white paper, then you get the idea of what is in there, and then there is a chance for it. So how do you submit? But there are 2 other aspects around it also. How do you start your research? And once you've done the submission, once you're selected, how do you present your research? So there's a series of sessions that have happened, and I think most of them are recorded, and at least the slides are made available. So if you look at the submission page, we have that content there. There are sample submissions also, which actually guides people on how to submit content. What I've seen as negative submissions is when you, in your imagination, you have done an excellent job. You are in that sphere where you are deep into your research. So for you, every keyword makes sense. But when another person is looking at that submission, they may not even realize how you're correlating these keywords. So you have, when you're making a submission, you have to come down from that high and submit something which an unknown person can read and understand. And the best way I have found that is, if whatever submission you're making, you ask a friend of yours to actually look at it and tell you what they find in it. What do they understand from it? Because that's kind of how you are converting that knowledge into text. So that's one. The areas where I want to see more work, there is one sort of aspiration of mine. I have not yet seen a Pontoon winner from India. I want to see that.
I hope that happens.
So that's one. The hardware space is where we have less people working on. So that's an area I want to see more people doing work. So that's the areas.
And quantum.
Quantum,
Yeah, that's up and coming.
Yeah, we should
It's
start
going
that
to be the next word, next buzzword after AI.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting, and thank you both for that. If you could tell every CISO, security researcher, and practitioner in India just one thing about why they need to be in Black Hat India, what would it be, Neelu?
I think I would be, I have also spoken at Black Hat. I think definitely, and I'm speaking this from experience, this is one of the best place for your work to be seen. You will get to meet some of the best researchers in India and, of course, in the region. So that is, I think, a great incentive to be here. And also think of meeting different industry leaders to see how far your innovation can go, because we never think of the third leg as researchers. We're not thinking of where it is being applied, how many people is it impacting. There was a research called in toto framework that came up. So it was an academic research first, but today see the application of that across supply chain security. Almost all the good organizations are picking it up. So there is a huge provision there where you can actually benefit the entire community through your research. And I think that is the biggest incentive that should be.
Great. What are your thoughts?
So conferences like Black Hat actually gives you bunch of different silos in one place. You have the researchers who are working on cutting edge technology presenting out their research. Even if you don't, and I'm talking from a say a CISO point of view, even if you don't attend the session yourself, just by looking at, okay, these are the keywords, you have an idea of, okay, this is where the stream is going. So if you want your engineers to attend it, or your security engineers to attend it, you can direct them that, hey, in our sphere, AppSec is important, and there is a talk happening around, say, HTTP headers. You should go and attend it. So the CISOs can direct people from technology point of view. On the other side, we have a open source tools demo session called Arsenal, where in all the conferences, I mean, not even considering Black Hat as the only one, any conference in the world, if you have a tools demo session going on, my suggestion is to attend those first. And the reason for that is very simple. If you attend a briefing, it is possible that you may be able to use that immediately or maybe in next 3 months or 6 months. Any tool that you see in Arsenal, while the tool is being presented, you can actually download it, use it, see the problems with that tool, or if everything is working fine, good. If there is a problem, the author is right in front of you, actually ready to interact with you. So you can ask them questions, get it fixed. I've presented multiple Arsenal sessions. I've got feature requests. I've got bugs fixed. I've got friends because of that, because they started working on that tool and then they became friends for life. So that happens. On the other side, if you're someone looking for products, it is difficult in your corporate office to actually sit down and attend a 200 vendor calls, because everyone would glorify whatever they are presenting to you. So 200 hours wasted. Here you can actually just roam around and watch it for 5 minutes. If it makes sense, you stick around, otherwise you go. So that whole business hall area that is there, that helps you in finding interesting spaces. And just because the way business hall compositions are, you obviously have big players and then you have smaller players around, and that is a chance that those smaller players get to present whatever they're working on. And the difference becomes a big player has something established and then they're talking about it. These players might be up to something more interesting, but they're a small team, and knowing them actually gives you more advantages.
That's wonderful. So we've covered a lot of ground today. Um, but from all that we've discussed, what do you want to see in Black Hat India? What excites you, Neelu?
I think this being in India, right, it's very uniquely positioned to be able to take, of course, security innovation is what I want to see, but see how that applies at scale. Because if one thing India specializes in, or, because of our current position, a lot of companies which we are catering to from here in India, a lot of work that's going to happen in future also. I would love to see more innovation that will support scale, and that could be AI innovation, and things like that. And also the second thing is more cutting edge. So that's why I chimed in with quantum, because a lot of work is happening in that space as well. And I would like, in the coming 5-10 years, we take the lead in innovation, but not just in terms of following what either China is doing or US is doing, but also having our own original security innovation that we can then share with the rest of the world.
Great. Anant, what are your thoughts?
So the unique position angle is very important. We have companies who we call as medium tier companies, who are basically catering to more people than probably the population of a few countries combined together. So that scale problem is massive. There is a lot of stuff that are happening within India only. For example, UPI is one thing. We have just now started, or rather exporting it out to other countries. So India specific stacks that are there, that's one area I want to see. Okay, what is going on in that space? If anyone is working on those areas, that's what I want to see. Problems that happen at scale. So let's say we talk about race conditions. When we generally talk about race conditions, we're talking about browser race conditions and those bits where a few hundred requests are doing something. In India, you don't actually need to generate that scenario. It happens automatically. On the day a result is declared, the exam server feels a DOS attack, not because someone is trying to attack, because people are just accessing the resources. So that is an environment that you don't get outside. And a lot of times, researchers hesitate in submitting that kind of content outside because the feel is it's too much India centric. And within India, there is definitely a ecosystem of conferences, but there also there is On certain topics, there's a bit of hesitation. On certain topics, it basically boils down to there is a number of presentations that can be accepted. So having more conferences with a larger gambit allows more people to present their work. And the scale problem happens here also. We have more innovations happening than there are places available across the globe in all conferences to be presented. So having more conferences gives us that space.
That's a very beautiful way to end our podcast. And thank you so much, both of you. And we see that, and that security is not just a latch on or a layer that is sitting over your existing systems, but it's much deeper than that. Thank you for your commitment to equipping cybersecurity professionals and enthusiasts, and also helping India take a step forward towards a more secure digital future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Swati. The call for briefings and call for tools is now open on our website, blackhat-india.com. Please do submit your work, and the review board members that you just heard from will read your submission. And if it's as good as you think it might be, you will land at the stage at Black Hat India this October. To the review board members, thank you for the time, for the candor, and for building something that this community has needed for a really long time. To everyone who's listening, we'll see you in Bangalore October 27th to 30th at Black Hat India. Thank you for tuning in to the Black Hat India podcast.